Summer's coming up and you may be wanting to bust out that grill, start grilling some more. And of course, hamburgers come to mind, and y'all been after me, hamburger bun recipe. And technically, you can use my simple yeast bread loaf recipe for it, but I'm gonna be showing you a different one, and one that can be made where you can have buns in about 45 minutes. Yeah, that's a win. Hey y'all, welcome back to Grains and Grit. My name is Felicia, and on this channel, we talk all things real whole grains, all from a biblical perspective. So as I stated, I get many requests about a hamburger bun recipe, and all that I have done so far is just share with y'all my simple yeast bread loaf recipe, and that dough can be turned into hamburger buns. And while that is good, I have found another dedicated hamburger bun recipe that I think is just better, and it's faster, and all using 100% freshly milled wheat. So I'm going to be showing y'all that today. We're actually going to be grilling today, making hamburgers for supper tonight. So I've got to make some hamburger buns, and so we're going to be doing that today. Now, do you know about this recipe? This is a converted recipe that I've converted from Fox and Breyer. She uses all-purpose flour. We're going to be using 100% freshly milled wheat. And of course, the printable recipe will be for y'all in the description box below. Now, the printable recipe that I'm going to be sharing with y'all will be making around 8 hamburger buns, depending on the size that you like. I've got a large family. We're eating these tonight. I'm going to be doubling the recipe. So I'm going to be telling y'all what the printable recipe uses, but what you see is a doubling of the recipe, which I find that I do a lot here on my channel, is I tell you the single recipe and I'm always doubling or tripling it. Now, first step, of course, is choosing our wheat when it comes to hamburger buns. This is a yeast bread, so I do want to look at typically a hard wheat. However, these do not have to rise super crazy high. And so it is possible for you to use another type of wheat, possibly like a spelt, a camus, an einkorn. Do you know those ancient grains can be a little weird when it comes to recipes? So I do recommend ancient grains for those who are a bit more experienced. But today, I'm actually choosing a hard white wheat from 4 Generations Organic Farms, and they are sponsoring this video today. And I will be talking about them later on. But I have found personally for me, I do prefer a hard white wheat, because a hard white wheat is not going to give you a stronger whole wheaty type flavor like a hard red does. If you like that, perfect. You can also do half and half. There's many different ways to do this. So the bottom line is, like with any bread and you're using freshly milled wheat, find what you like and use it. But bottom line, the thing to keep in mind is that you do need this bread to rise, but not a crazy amount. So you possibly may even be able to use soft white wheat, but I've just never personally tried that yet. But my gut is telling me I think it could possibly work. I don't know though. If you try that, whatever wheat you like to use, comment, let us know in the comments below so we can all learn from you. Okay, so let's get started. First and foremost, of course, you need a grain mill and a way to grind your grains, which I've already done. I've used Miss Wanda, my Wonder Mill grain mill. She is a workhorse. And so you're going to want to mill about 2 to 2.5 cups of wheat berries, and that is going to mill to around 3 to 3.5 cups of flour. You may need a little more or a little less. Kind of all depends on the wheat that you were using. So I've got that here. I'm also going to be using a mixer today. This is Miss Annie, the Nutrimel Artiste, and all of these will be linked down below, but she is great and can certainly handle the bread dough from freshly milled wheat. We are also going to need some water. You're going to need 1 cup of warm water, 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of water. Now, as you will see later, go with the water. I didn't change that when I converted the recipe because I prefer to add or subtract flour, keep the liquids the same. So that's 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of warm water, same temperature that you use for regular bread making. You will need 2 tablespoons, yes, 2 tablespoons of yeast. I do prefer instant yeast. It is going to go faster. And that also allows me to skip a step, therefore making this faster, which I'll get into later. You can use active dry yeast, but I'll tell you how to modify it if you do. You also need 1/3 cup of oil. I'm actually using avocado oil today, but olive oil, peanut oil, use an oil of choice. A 1/4 cup of sugar, and you can choose to leave this out, but I do prefer it. It tastes really good. It's not a sweet bread. It just adds a little bit of flavor and it helps that yeast going a bit more as well. You need 1 large egg that is beaten. You also need 1 teaspoon of salt and of course your flour like I already mentioned. So let's get started. So I have my dough hook in here. We are first going to add the yeast. Now I know that the amount of yeast may give some people a slight heart attack. If you want to use less yeast, that is totally fine. Back off on the yeast, just know it's just gonna make your rising time longer. Now we're gonna add to our yeast our warm water. Remember, yeast likes warm water, not hot, not cold. It likes a nice warm environment. And then we're also going to add our oil and also our sugar. Yeast loves sugar very, very much. Now, with this, if I was using active dry yeast, you would mix this all up and let it stand for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes until it starts foaming up. You need to do this with active dry yeast because it needs to be, as the title implies, activated. If you skip this step, your yeast will not work. You can also do this with instant yeast. It's a great way to check your yeast to make sure that it's good because after 5 minutes, it should be all bubbly and happy. But with instant yeast, I can actually skip this to cut back on the time, and that's what I'm going to do today. But I'm still going to mix this up. Now, of course, you can do all of this by hand, but it will take more muscle and a little bit more time to do so. So like I said, I'm going to skip this step. So if you're skipping or whenever you're ready, next step is we're going to add in our beaten egg. And then we're going to add in our salt and then start adding in the flour. Now I am doubling. So what I would like to do is to add in half of the flour. Turn the mixer on, and then I start judging how much more to add, because that way I'm always looking for it to just start be pulling off the sides of the bowl, and that tells me I can start my kneading time. I've added enough flour. As always, you want your flour to be slightly tacky after kneading, not really sticky. So again, I'm actually doubling this recipe, so you would add about 1.5 cups or maybe 2 cups of flour. I'm going to be adding in 3. You know, I know I'm going to need more than that. I'm going to go ahead and add 4. Bottom line is I'm just not adding all the wheat in. You can always add, you cannot take away. And then we start mixing up, and now I'm just going to start adding in flour and kneading it in until I start seeing it pull away from the sides of the bowl. So we've already added 4. This will be 5. And I do love this part of the Nutrimel Artiste, so I can just move that away. Now with the Artiste, unlike the Bosch, I do find that I do like it around 3 or 4 setting when I'm mixing and kneading. Okay, I'll turn this off so you can hear me. It is just now starting to come off the sides of the bowl. I'm going to go ahead and start my kneading time. I can always add more flour later. When it comes to shaping, I don't want to add too much right now because again, I can't take it away. So I'm going to give it just a few more minutes or a few more seconds to make sure it's consistently roughly staying off the sides of the bowl, and then start my kneading time. We're going to knead for about 4 to 5 minutes. Now, while this is kneading, I wanted to tell y'all more about 4 Generations Organic Farms. They are an organic farm that has actually been on their land since the 1800s in Oklahoma, been on the same land as organic farmers. So they really have been taking care of their soil. They are all about making sure their soil is at optimum health, because the healthier your soil is, the better nutritious, the more nutritious that your plants are. And I personally, I do love the wheat berries. I haven't had any problems with them. And I also love the fact that they are shipped to my house. They are shipped in really good sturdy buckets with oxygen absorbers in them as well. So I do recommend them. They're about, you know, they are a good price for organic wheat berries. And again, I don't have to go somewhere to get them. They're shipped right to my house. Be sure to check out 4 Generations Organic Farms. All you got to do is go to grainsandgrit.com/4generations and use coupon code GRAINSANDGRIT for 10% off your very first order. And thank you so much to 4 Generations Organic Farms for sponsoring this video and for providing the wheat for these wonderful hamburger buns. All right, y'all, one thing I did forget is while this was kneading and I'm making it, I am preheating my oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes, 425. I did not misspeak. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. And we're gonna go ahead and take these, let me take the dough hook out here. Okay, and that is pretty good. Let me move you here. Here we have a pretty soft dough. Again, the softness of your dough will kind of depend on the type of wheat that you use. But this is doing pretty good. All right, so now all that we do, no rise, we just go ahead and shape. So you're gonna want some pans. These are my wonderful USA pans that I love. I don't have to spray them or anything. They're nonstick and they're perfect. So we're just gonna be shaping these. So I like to pull, again, it kind of depends on the size. You want them bigger, go bigger, but really you do them like rolls in a way. So we're gonna roll them up where I slightly tuck under. Here you go, slightly tuck under. Okay, you can also do it here where you're slightly tucking, using your thumb, tucking it under. It's just all you're doing is getting a good shape, but then I like to kind of flatten it out a bit. Okay, so I don't like mine to be like honking huge. I do kind of tend to like mine a bit smaller. Just depends on how big you're wanting your patties or how big your patties are. So there we go. We got a nice cute little bun there. And remember, these are going to rise bigger. Okay, so let's keep at it. And I'm actually going to do a variety of sizes here. Okay, and let me do a bit bigger one. Now, unfortunately, I did run out of sesame seeds. I have no sesame seeds, but that is okay. These will still be good. Okay, and then kind of blump, 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 kind of flatten that out there. A bit bigger one. You can also just do it in your hand if you want, but not super thin, but you know, a little flat there. You can see the difference in the sizes. That's the larger ones and smaller ones. I think I'm going to keep it that size. If you want, you can go ahead and divide this dough up, weigh them all to make sure they're all the exact same size. But this is made for my family and I've got a range of different kiddos and everything. So we're okay with all the different sizes. All right, there's another one. Okay, so I was actually able to make 17 buns. So a little, like one more than doubling, but that's because I did do some smaller buns here. So what we're gonna do is I'm actually gonna cover these, let them rest for about 5 minutes, and then I'm gonna come back over them with an egg wash to get them that nice browning on top. And then if I had sesame seeds, I would be adding them with that egg wash, but I don't, but it's okay. So again, be making sure that your oven is at 425 degrees because these do not take long to rise. So we're gonna leave them here for about 5 to 10 minutes, egg wash, and it's pretty much time to place them in the oven. All right, I actually misspoke. It needs 10 minutes to rest, and they have actually risen pretty well, and then they're gonna rise even more in the oven. So all that we're gonna do is put an egg wash. This is 1 egg yolk and 1 tablespoon of water. We just whisk this all together. And again, you can skip this if you want, but it does make it that kind of shiny, golden brown on the top. And then once you do this, this is the step where you add your sesame seeds because it also helps it to adhere. So you just want to do this. I did not need to double the amount of egg wash that I use because I always find I've got plenty of egg wash. I'm never in short of that. But just be gentle with this because you don't want to be so hard that you flatten everything. And then we are immediately going to be placing them into a 425 degree oven. Yes, y'all, a 10-minute rise. This has literally will be, yeah, roughly about 40 minutes. Now it took me a bit longer because I am teaching y'all. And of course I doubled the recipe. So shaping them all takes a bit longer. But yeah, so you can have hamburger buns on the table ready to go. Now these also freeze very well. You can make these and then freeze for about 2 months, or you can make them and store them in an airtight container for about, 2 to 3 days, typical time it is for fresh and milled wheat goods. And so we are done with this. Let's pop them in the oven. so I'm actually gonna check them after 8 minutes because depending on your oven, might wanna see, but you're basically looking for them to be that nice golden brown on the top. All right, y'all, here they are. And look how massive they got. I know you may be so shocked at how big these get. And just, it took me 10 minutes. It took me 10 minutes in the oven. And as you can see, they started to split a little bit, which is fine. This just means that they just rose a little too much. That's all that means. But hey, these are still gonna be good, but oh, these are gonna be so soft. I'll have to show y'all later when we have the hamburgers to see how these look. But yeah, these are pretty thick, but I find that this makes it a little bit lighter than my simple yeast bread loaf recipe. So easier to eat, but very filling. So let's get these off and put them on a cooling rack so they can start to cool. And again, if you do choose to freeze these, obviously cool completely before freezing any of this. But what I would do, and personally, I would actually go ahead and cut them in half and freeze them so that way they're ready to go. But it's up to you what you prefer to do. Future Felicia here with my chickens in the background stepped outside because I actually messed up a little bit in this video. It had been a while since I made the hamburger buns and I did it, but after this, I realized there was a better way to do this. And what that is actually keeping the hamburger buns in the oven until they're nicely golden brown. And if they're not browning, stick them under the broiler for about 1 minute to 2 minutes. And you're gonna see in just a bit how amazing these hamburger buns looked whenever they were nice and golden brown. I think what I did is I just honestly didn't cook them long enough. So for me, it actually did take maybe, I probably should have left them in there for another 2 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes to bake, and then also stick them under the broiler. And as you're about to see, it just looks so much better with sesame seeds. I do recommend the sesame seeds if you have them. But yeah, I'm about to show y'all what I did after recording this video. And they just turned out so much better. Okay, so here's what I mean, y'all. Just absolutely beautiful, golden brown. I mean, they just looked absolutely perfect. And I definitely prefer this method more. So again, bake them until they're nicely golden brown. And if they're just not browning on the top, stick them in your broiler for about 1 to 2 minutes. And again, I highly recommend the sesame seeds. Probably don't want to skip that unless you want to, and that's okay. But either way, however you do it, just make sure that they're cooked all the way and, you know, getting that nice brown on the top. But how beautiful are these? All right, here we are. This is my husband's burger. He also just threw the buns on the grill real quick to kind of char them. And we're having it with field peas and homemade macaroni and cheese. And it's pretty good. So again, printable recipe is down below. And as always, hopefully y'all enjoy this recipe. Y'all have a wonderful week and I'll see you next week. Bye.